The Grammys were last night and Taylor Swift was nominated for 6 Grammy nominations for the Tortured Poets department, but yet she didn't win any. Not a single one. I mean, this is Taylor Swift that we're talking about. Whether you love her or you hate her, you can't deny that when she's at the Grammys, she's going to be the one who's winning the Grammys. So was the Grammys unfair to her this year? Or was the Tortured Poets department just not good enough? Or was it actually Taylor Swift who created her own trap into not winning any Grammys this year? Well, let's discuss. Swift was up for 6 nominations this year, including Album of the Year, Best Pop Vocal Album of the Year, Song of the Year, Record of the Year, Best Music Video, and Best Pop/Duo Performance. Now, some of those I can understand her not getting the win, specifically for Song of the Year and Record of the Year. Both of them were for her song Fortnite featuring Post Malone, and whilst both Taylor and Post are extremely successful, Post Malone also didn't win any Grammys this year, even though he was nominated for a lot. And compared to the other songs that were against Fortnite, it was just never going to win. I mean, I absolutely adore that song, but I'm realistic in knowing that it is not going to win Song of the Year in 2024. When I think of Song of the Year of 2024, even though Fortnite was my most played song, I don't think of Fortnite. Especially when it's against things like Please Please Please, a bar song, Not Like Us, Die With A Smile, Espresso, Birds of a Feather. Like, personally, I think Fortnite is miles better than all of them, but it's not really a single like those other songs. The Tortured Poets department is definitely not seen as an album full of singles, it's more seen as how the songs can come together cohesively to create a great storytelling album. Plus, unfortunately, Taylor has never won Song of the Year, so she's pretty much cursed at this point, even though she has been nominated for it 8 times. She was nominated in 2010 for You Belong With Me, then 2015 for Shake It Off, 2016 for Blank Space, 2020 for Lover, 2021 for Cardigan, 2023 for All Too Well, the 10-minute version, 2024 for Anti-Hero, and finally here now 2025 for Fortnite. I mean, if Shake It Off, You Belong With Me, and Anti-Hero didn't win, which are a lot more of traditional what you'd expect to win in this sort of category as lead singles, Fortnite basically had no chance. For Best Music Video, however, I do think Fortnite had a good shot because that video is absolutely iconic, but I think, will it be remembered in the long run? Probably only be remembered by the Swifties, not by the general public. And then Best Pop/Duo Performance was for Gracie Abrams' Us, which I do think deserved the win. However, again, Taylor performed a lot with several different artists, including people like Florence and the Machine, Ed Sheeran. She performed a lot while she was on the Eras tour, and so Us being the most iconic, especially against other performance duos that she was up against in the Grammys, I can understand why that one didn't win. But then we come to the big two. Best Pop Vocal Album and Album of the Year. And these are the two categories that I think the Tortured Poets department should have won. If not one, it should have won the other. And if it had been any other year, I do think it would have won. Let's address the Pop Vocal Album first. Swift was against Short and Sweet by Sabrina Carpenter, Hit Me Hard and Soft by Billie Eilish, Eternal Sunshine by Ariana Grande, and The Rise and Fall of a Midwest Princess by Chappell Roan. Billie Eilish also went home this year with no Grammys, and Ariana Grande wasn't even in attendance. She's basically just been ignored by the Grammys completely this year. And compared to the Tortured Poets department, Eternal Sunshine was pretty much forgotten before it had even began, because as soon as it came out, Ariana Grande basically forgot about it and instead decided to start promoting Wicked rather than her own music. So I'm not surprised that that one didn't win. And then Hit Me Hard and Soft did have some massive hits like Birds of a Feather, like Wildflower, but I don't think Billie Eilish did as much of a cultural impact as she has done previously, and compared to these other artists and other albums, I definitely see why this one didn't win. The Rise and Fall of a Midwest Princess I do think had a cultural impact this year, but considering Chappell Roan's lead single for 2024, Good Luck Babe, didn't even appear on this album, I can understand why that one also didn't win. But then we have Sabrina Carpenter's Short and Sweet, and I do think this one did deserve the win over the Tortured Poets department, purely because this category is Best pop vocal album. And Short and Sweet is a very classic pop album, but also has a modern take on it and a fresh take for 2024 and 2025 audience. Espresso and Please 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 have paved the way for new directions in the pop world, whereas the Tortured Poets Department is more like an indie folk pop album, which is still great, but I will say definitely didn't make any waves in the pop industry this year, unlike Short and Sweet did. Plus, Sabrina Carpenter and Taylor Swift are best friends. We saw them both playing together on the Eras tour, and you could tell it was a win for both of them and for Jack Antonoff. But then we come to Album of the Year. This one, I'm shocked that the Tortured Poets Department did not win, and that is why I think potentially it was Taylor's fault as to the reason why she didn't win, because she almost became too successful in her previous years. So let's look at this category as a whole. She was against people like Andre 3000, Beyonce, Sabrina Carpenter, Charlie XCX, Jacob Collier, Billie Eilish, Chappell Roan. And we've discussed a lot of these albums already. There's also Brat here, which had a big cultural significance in the summer especially, and Charlie XCX has rose to massive popularity this year, so it makes sense that she was on this list. And again, Short and Sweet might have taken this win, but instead we got Cowboy Carter by Beyonce winning Album of the Year, which I was just very confused about. And don't get me wrong, Beyonce is very, very successful, but for that album to win Album of the Year, that just doesn't make any sense to me. If we take into account the rest of the albums on this list, like Short and Sweet, like Brat, I definitely wouldn't have placed Cowboy Carter anywhere near the top. I'd have placed her maybe like 4th or 5th. And how it won over the Tortured Poets Department, I will never know. I don't think Cowboy Carter really had any cultural significance or any drastic changes in the music industry, and I have never heard anyone rave on about Cowboy Carter as they do rave on about the Tortured Poets Department or the Rise and Fall of Midwest Princess or Brat or Short and Sweet, for example. But let's just take it from an actual consumer point of view, because the Tortured Poets Department literally blows Cowboy Carter out of the water or off its horse completely and destroys everyone else in this category. So if we were just taking it from a commercial standpoint, the Tortured Poets Department should have won. When it was released, it took over the top 14 spots on the Billboard Hot 100. No one has ever managed to do that. It earned 6.955 million album units in the US alone. That's not taking into account international sales, which was the biggest yearly total since Adele's 25 in 2015. It was the top-selling album by traditional album sales, top-selling album by CDs, by vinyls, by cassette tapes, and top-selling album by digital downloads. And in terms of streams, the Tortured Poets Department streams equivalent album sales was 3.434 million units, which tops every other album on this list by almost double. And then the Tortured Poets Department album was #1 on the Billboard Hot 200 album record for 17 weeks. For reference, Beyonce's total weeks at #1 for all of her albums collectively accumulates to only 12 weeks. That's 5 more weeks than this one album, not including any of the other 10 albums that Taylor Swift has released and her re-recordings. If the Tortured Poets Department was an artist by itself, it would still have more weeks at #1 than Beyonce, way more than Cowboy Carter. And let's just look at Spotify alone just for now. It was the first album in Spotify history to surpass 1 billion streams in 1 week, and it broke the record for the biggest pop album of all time by first day streams on Apple Music. I mean, just look at this list here. Here is the video of Cowboy Carter's streaming numbers, and then here is the video for the Tortured Poets Department, the anthology. The Tortured Poets Department original album has way more streams than Cowboy Carter even does, but including the anthology, making it 31 tracks, it absolutely destroys Cowboy Carter. And then we have the fact that the biggest tour in history, the Eras Tour, literally was performing the Tortured Poets Department to all of Europe, America, and Canada, just missing Australia and Asia. So millions of people saw this album live. It certainly had a cultural impact on everyone, and it sold out shows. How on earth did the Tortured Poets Department not win Album of the Year? And even then, how on earth was it beaten by Cowboy Carter? If it was beaten by Sabrina Carpenter, maybe it would make sense. Like, I do think Cowboy Carter deserved to win Best Country Album, and I'm glad that it did, but not Album of the Year. And I do think the problem was with Taylor Swift herself. And it's all because she won Album of the Year last year in 2024 for Midnight. I do think it's safe to say that the majority of people would agree that the Tortured Poets Department is a better album in terms of storytelling and music than Midnight's. Like, I absolutely love Midnight, but you've got to admit the Tortured Poets Department is just a better put together album, and yet Midnight's won Album of the Year. And I think it's because there has only ever been 2 artists in Grammy history who have ever won back-to-back consecutive years of Album of the Year, being Frank Sinatra in 1966 and 1967, and Stevie Wonder in 1974 and 1975. And Taylor Swift does already hold the record for the most albums to ever win Album of the Year, being Fearless, 1989, Folklore, and Midnight. If she'd have won Tortured Poets Department, she would have been, again, just beating her own record. And so I do think it was unfortunately because of Taylor Swift's previous successes with the fact that she won Album of the Year with Midnight is the reason why she actually made it harder for herself in order to make the Tortured Poets Department the Album of the Year. And the fact that it didn't win any Grammys, I am absolutely shocked by. Because I think if this album had been released in any other year, even if it was released this year in 2025, it definitely would have won Album of the Year. But regardless, Taylor looked like she was having a wonderful time at the Grammys, and you can tell she was really happy for Sabrina's win and Beyonce's win and all of the other people's wins, and she still had a wonderful time even if she didn't win any Grammys. So maybe it's not that bad after all, although I do still think the Tortured Poets Department should have won. But what do you guys think about this? Do you agree with me or not? Do you think it was probably Taylor Swift's own fault as to the reason why she didn't win? Or do you think the Tortured Poets Department just wasn't that good of an album? Let me know your thoughts down below in the comments. And as always, we've been here on Gated Theories. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys later. Right now, but it's never enough. I'm not even ready.